I know that a lot of people believe whatever because they don't understand and they don't know.
It began with a celebration. Famed violinist and conductor André Rieu had just announced his newest album, Happy Together, a title that captured the joyful essence of his music and the long-awaited reunion with his Johann Strauss Orchestra. After a period of global disruption that kept performers and fans apart, the announcement came as a refreshing reminder of the power of music to bring people back together. For Rieu and his team, getting back on stage wasn't just a return to normal, it was something deeply emotional. But just as excitement was building, fans were hit with unexpected and unsettling news. André's son, Pierre Rieu, shared an update that caught many off guard. With clear emotion in his voice, he revealed that his father was facing a serious health issue. After months of whispers, canceled shows, and growing concern from fans across the world, the silence had been broken. André Rieu, often referred to as the King of the Waltz, has spent more than 5 decades captivating audiences. His concerts are a combination of classical brilliance and entertainment charm, a rare mix that has earned him millions of devoted fans worldwide. Whether playing in historic venues or filling massive arenas, Rieu's presence is magnetic. His orchestral performances feel more like celebrations than formal concerts, and that warmth is what's kept audiences coming back for years. So when performances were suddenly postponed and tour dates quietly removed from schedules, people began asking questions. Social media lit up with speculation. Was he ill? Had something happened during one of the tours? Or was it simply exhaustion catching up with a 74-year-old man who still performed like someone half his age? Initially, there were no official statements. Neither Rieu nor his management team responded to the speculation, and fans were left in the dark. But the quiet concern began to grow. Then, Pierre Rieu, who also serves as the orchestra's production manager and spokesperson, confirmed that the rumors had a basis in truth. His father was indeed unwell, and it was more serious than many had feared. Although the exact nature of the health problem wasn't fully detailed in that initial announcement, the tone was clear. This wasn't just a brief illness or temporary fatigue. For someone as dedicated and driven as André Rieu to step away from the stage, it had to be something significant. André Rieu is no stranger to the toll that a demanding touring schedule can take on the body. Known for his energetic presence and a relentless commitment to performing, he has traveled the world countless times over the years. From North America to Europe, Asia to Australia, he's brought classical music to places where few orchestras tour, making it both accessible and enjoyable for audiences of all ages. In the past, he's spoken openly about how much he loves what he does, and how hard it is to imagine life without it. Even when dealing with health challenges, he's often chosen to push through, not wanting to let down the fans who wait months, sometimes years, to see him perform. This mindset of giving his all the time, has earned him admiration, but has also come with its own risks. The announcement from his son was not just about health, it marked a shift. It opened the door to discussions about André's well-being, the pressures of international touring, and the reality of aging in an industry that never really stops. For many fans, the news was heartbreaking. It felt personal, like hearing that a beloved family member was facing something difficult. That's the kind of connection Rieu has built with his audience over the years. His influence goes far beyond the classical music scene. While many classical performers remain niche or academic, Rieu has built a brand of classical music that's approachable and fun. He's known for joking with the audience, laughing with his orchestra, and even dancing on stage. It's a level of intimacy rarely seen in classical circles, and that makes the current uncertainty feel even heavier. The concern was further fueled by the recent pattern of canceled shows. First, dates in Australia were postponed. Then performances in the UK were called off. With each change, fan forums and online groups tried to piece together what was really going on. Some feared the worst, while others held on to hope that it was just precautionary. But when Pierre finally spoke out, the vague concern became real. It's important to remember that this isn't the first time André Rieu has faced health issues. In 2010, he experienced a sudden and alarming health crisis while on holiday, which led to a diagnosis of vestibular neuritis, a condition that affects the inner ear and balance. At the time, he described the sensation as the room spinning uncontrollably. He had to cancel several tours and take time off, something that was incredibly difficult for him to accept. But he recovered and returned to the stage, seemingly stronger and more determined than ever. That past experience now looms large in the minds of fans who wonder if this new challenge is similar, or perhaps more severe. When someone has spent their entire life performing, the idea of stepping away, even temporarily, can be devastating. But it also highlights the limits of human endurance, especially when combined with the pressures of global fame and constant travel. The question now is, what happens next? Will André Rieu return to touring as he has in the past, with full-scale international productions and packed stadiums? Or will this be the moment that prompts a reevaluation of what the future should look like, not just for him, but for the entire team that supports him? There's also the emotional aspect to consider. Pierre Rieu has always been candid about the challenges that come with managing such a large and well-known orchestra. He's spoken about the financial pressures, the stress of travel, and the responsibility of caring not just for his father, but for the entire crew. In recent interviews, he's hinted that the team might need to reconsider how they plan tours, especially those that involve long-distance travel or high-altitude locations. This new health scare might be the tipping point. Not only is André Rieu older now, but the world has changed too. The demands of post-pandemic touring are different. There's more risk, more complexity, and more uncertainty. For a performer who's used to being in control of the music, the production, the timing, that loss of predictability can be unsettling. In 2010, during what was supposed to be a peaceful holiday in Belgium, André experienced a moment that would change the course of his life. It was the middle of the night when he woke up suddenly, feeling as if the entire room was spinning. Not just a little dizziness. This was severe, disorienting vertigo. He had no idea what was happening, and by the morning, he described feeling completely broken. For someone who had rarely, if ever, taken time off due to illness, this came as a shock. At the time, André Rieu was known not only for his musical talent, but for his stamina. He often joked that he didn't suffer from jet lag, despite flying across continents week after week. His schedule was famously packed, with tours, rehearsals, interviews, and business meetings. There was barely any time to rest, and that lifestyle had become his norm. Looking back, it became clear that the incident wasn't just a random health scare. It was the result of years of pushing himself to the limit. Just before the episode, Rieu had been working on a major DVD production, learning Spanish for upcoming shows in Mexico, and dealing with extreme heat during performances, all within a short period. The stress was constant, and the pressure to deliver was always present. He later admitted that he only ever operated in two modes, full speed or complete stop. There was no in-between. Following the incident, doctors diagnosed him with vestibular neuritis, an infection that affects the vestibular nerve in the inner ear. This nerve is responsible for maintaining balance, and when it's inflamed, the symptoms can be debilitating. In Rieu's case, it meant ongoing dizziness, nausea, and a loss of physical control. Even standing up was difficult. It was a condition that could be triggered by something as minor as a cold, yet the effects were severe enough to derail his career. At first, Rieu tried to minimize what was happening. Canceling performances was something he had always avoided. He felt a deep sense of duty, not just to his fans, but to the massive team that relied on him. The Johann Strauss Orchestra isn't a small group. Behind the scenes, there are hundreds of people involved in making each performance possible. Rieu felt personally responsible for them, and the idea of letting them down weighed heavily on him. But eventually, the reality became impossible to ignore. Tours in Australia and the UK had to be cancelled, a decision that was painful but necessary. Rieu described it as one of the hardest periods in his life. Not only was he unwell, but he was also unsure if he'd ever return to the stage. At one point, he even underwent a brain scan to rule out more serious conditions, including a possible brain tumor. Thankfully, no further issues were found, but the scar had left a mark. During his recovery, André was inundated with messages from fans. Many were simply offering support, but some also sent suggestions and advice. One fan from Australia recommended a series of balance exercises designed to help retrain the body's coordination. Rieu, always open to trying something new, gave them a go. He began walking in figure eights, practicing eye movements, and standing on one leg with his eyes closed. Over time, these exercises helped. Within 3 months, he reported feeling healthy again. That period of healing became a turning point. For the first time in his career, Rieu was forced to slow down and reflect on how he had been living. He began taking a closer look at his commitments and noticed that a large portion of his time was spent on things that had little to do with music, the one thing he truly loved. Business meetings, administrative duties, appearances at events, and even lectures had all crept into his schedule. They drained his energy and left little room for the joy of performing. To get a clearer view, he sat down and wrote 2 lists. On one list, he noted everything he loved. The list was short. It was mostly about music, rehearsing, playing, being with his orchestra, and performing for audiences. The second list was much longer, filled with tasks that he didn't enjoy but had somehow become a regular part of his life. That simple exercise led to a big decision. He began eliminating those stressors, one by one. From that moment forward, André Rieu made a conscious effort to protect his health and focus only on the work that inspired him. He adjusted his tour schedules to allow for more rest, delegated more responsibilities to his trusted team, and started paying closer attention to his overall well-being. The idea was simple: joy, passion, and balance. That was the new rule. Medical experts often say that vestibular neuritis can improve within a few weeks, but for some, it can linger or even come back. Rieu knew this. He understood that his condition could relapse if he didn't manage his stress levels. So he committed to living differently. He wanted to keep performing, but he also wanted to stay healthy enough to enjoy it. And in the years that followed, it seemed like that approach worked. Rieu returned to the stage, continued touring, and regained his usual energy. Fans noticed that he looked refreshed and happy. His performances remained as vibrant as ever, but now there was a noticeable sense of balance behind them. He still gave his all on stage, but he also took time to rest, to travel more comfortably, and to enjoy the journey rather than rush through it. That transformation wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. For someone who had spent decades at the center of one of the world's most beloved orchestras, stepping back, even just a little, required a shift in mindset. But Rieu embraced it. He spoke more openly about the challenges of aging as a performer and encouraged others in the music world to find joy in the process rather than just the product. The first 2 performances in Mexico City went well. The music flowed effortlessly, the audience responded with energy and emotion, and Rieu, as always, delivered a show that felt more like a celebration than a traditional classical concert. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. But less than 24 hours after that second performance, the situation changed dramatically. André Rieu suddenly became unwell. What had started as mild discomfort quickly turned into something far more serious. Reports later confirmed that he had come down with a strong strain of the flu. His symptoms included a high fever and complete exhaustion, a worrying combination, especially considering the demanding pace of international touring and his age. The tour had to be paused, then it was canceled. The remaining concerts in Mexico could no longer go ahead. Fans, some of whom had traveled long distances or waited years for this opportunity, were heartbroken. But for Rieu's team, the decision was necessary. His son, Pierre Rieu, later explained what happened behind the scenes. According to him, the long-haul flight, the time zone difference, and the high altitude of Mexico City all contributed to the health crisis. André had only 1 day to rest between arriving and performing, and it simply wasn't enough. The combination of physical strain and limited recovery time took its toll. Rieu's body couldn't keep up, and the symptoms escalated fast. Pierre said the decision to cancel wasn't taken lightly. They had to act quickly. André was flown home so he could rest and receive proper care. The news stunned fans. For many, it brought back memories of his previous health issues and raised questions about whether he would be able to continue performing at the same level. For André himself, the incident was more than just a case of flu. It was a reminder of his physical limits. At 74, the pace of international touring is no longer what it used to be. While Rieu is in better shape than many his age, the reality is that the human body changes with time. As Pierre put it, people often compare his father to younger performers or athletes, forgetting that André is no longer in his 30s. Even though his passion for music is as strong as ever, his body is sending clear signals. Behind the scenes, the rest of the team felt the impact too. The orchestra, crew, and support staff had spent months preparing for the tour. The sudden cancellation affected not only morale but also the logistics of an international production. Flights had to be rearranged, merchandise sales were cut short, and tens of thousands of fans were left disappointed. In total, around 40,000 ticket holders had their shows canceled. The ripple effect was immediate and far-reaching. Donna Alberti, one of the lead singers who has been touring with Rieu since early in the year, said she noticed the physical strain almost immediately upon arriving in Mexico City. The high altitude, more than 2,000 meters above sea level, made rehearsals difficult. She recalled how her face turned red during performances and that she experienced nosebleeds, something that hadn't happened elsewhere on tour. During one performance, she had to stop mid-song to sip water just to get through. Despite the lighthearted way she described it later, it was clear that the conditions were physically demanding. The altitude affected the entire team. Less oxygen meant increased fatigue, headaches, and general discomfort. While this is manageable for many, for those already under strain, either due to age, travel, or illness, it can be a tipping point. For André, who had already pushed his limits for decades, it became more than he could bear. Pierre acknowledged that the experience had forced them to reconsider how future tours are planned. If they return to Mexico again, it won't be before 2025. They would need more rest days, better acclimatization periods, and a slower, more deliberate schedule. The focus now is on protecting André's health and making sure the team isn't pushed too hard. One of the most emotional moments came when Pierre revealed something his father had quietly said to his wife backstage after the second concert. Even before the illness fully set in, André had mentioned that he wasn't sure he could keep doing these kinds of long-distance tours. It was a quiet admission, but one that carried a lot of weight. For someone who has always seen the stage as his home, acknowledging a potential need to step back is deeply personal. Despite the challenges, André stayed hopeful. He was very ill for several days, with little energy to do anything. But after about a week, he began to feel better. His recovery was slow but steady. Still, the scare had done its damage. The question wasn't just whether he would recover physically. It was whether the structure of his career could remain the same. This incident also sparked conversations about the broader impact of such demanding tours. André Rieu is far from the only performer dealing with these challenges. But his story has highlighted the physical toll that long travel, tight schedules, and high expectations can take, especially on an aging artist and their team. The emotional burden isn't easy either. Fans may not see it, but behind the polished performances are long hours, intense rehearsals, and very little downtime. Emma, another member of Rieu's team, shared her perspective in the days following the tour's cancellation. One day she was singing for 10,000 people. The next, the tour was over. She described walking down the street in Mexico City and still being recognized by fans, many of whom had no idea that their final opportunity to see Rieu live in Mexico had already passed. The atmosphere around the venues had been electric. Streets filled with vendors selling unofficial merchandise, mugs, t-shirts, plush bears with Rieu's image. The excitement had been real, and the sudden ending was jarring. Pierre later said he was proud of his father for knowing when to stop. It wasn't easy, and canceling shows always comes with disappointment. But pushing through and collapsing on stage would have been far worse. This kind of decision, as hard as it is, may be what allows André to keep performing in the future, but in a more sustainable way. There was no lack of love from the fans. Even during the encore of the final Mexico City concert, the audience chanted Rieu's name, reluctant to let him leave the stage. They cheered for more, and despite not feeling his best, he gave them everything he could. That moment, with thousands of voices shouting in unison, was a testament to the bond he has built over decades. But it was also calm before a very sudden and unexpected storm. After returning home to Maastricht, André Rieu took time to rest and recover. The flu he contracted during his Mexico tour had left him completely drained, and the physical exhaustion that came with it made it clear that something needed to change. While the illness wasn't life-threatening, the experience was sobering. For Rieu, who had spent his entire life devoted to performing and touring, this was more than a health scare. It was a moment of reflection. Performing had always come naturally to him. Even at 74, André maintained a level of energy that many found remarkable. He played tennis, went jogging, and followed a healthy diet. He was proud of his stamina and had always made health a priority. But this time was different. When his legs began shaking and he felt close to collapsing on stage, it became clear that he couldn't keep pushing the way he used to. His son Pierre, who handles many aspects of production and logistics for the Johann Strauss Orchestra, explained that several factors played into the decision to cancel the remainder of the Mexico tour. Aside from the severe flu, the altitude of Mexico City was a major challenge. The National Auditorium, where Rieu had performed, sits more than 2.5 kilometers above sea level. That alone places considerable strain on the body, especially when there's little time to acclimatize. For André, it was a shock. He'd always pushed through. Even in the past, when he was unwell, he'd still taken to the stage. But this situation was simply too much. According to Pierre, the message from André to his team was clear. He didn't want to go through something like that again. The thought of putting himself in the same position, far from home, overwhelmed by exhaustion, unable to perform, wasn't something he wanted to repeat. The consequences were immediate. 4 concerts were canceled, tens of thousands of fans were affected, and the production team had to quickly reorganize logistics. Ticket holders were promised refunds, but no replacement dates were announced. This wasn't just a postponement, it was a clear sign that Rieu was reassessing what he could commit to in the future. That reassessment wasn't limited to one tour. It became part of a broader reflection on what kind of work made sense at this stage in his life. Long-haul flights, tight turnarounds, and packed schedules no longer seemed sustainable. Tours to faraway places like Mexico or Australia, once routine for Rieu and his team, were now under reconsideration. Not because the passion was gone, but because the physical demands had become too great. Still, André Rieu has no intention of retiring. Music is more than a profession for him, it's a way of life. In interviews, he said that performing is what keeps him feeling alive. Being away from the stage makes him feel restless. That energy, that desire to connect through music, hasn't faded. But the approach to it is changing. Rather than continue at full speed, Rieu and his team have decided to be more selective. They're reducing non-essential activities, fewer press events, fewer interviews, and less administrative responsibility. The goal is to preserve his energy for the things that matter most, making music and performing in the settings where he feels most supported. That decision comes with a certain honesty. In the past, André might have tried to make up for lost shows or rearrange schedules to fit everything in. Now he's made peace with the fact that he can't do it all. This doesn't mean giving up, it means adapting. It means making thoughtful choices about where and how to perform so that he can continue doing what he loves without compromising his health. Interestingly, it's not the first time he's talked about the importance of slowing down. After his inner ear condition in 2010, he had promised to reduce stress, and focus only on the aspects of his career that brought him joy. He followed through for a while, trimming back commitments and rebalancing his workload. But over time, the full pace of international touring crept back in. This latest scare seems to have brought that lesson back to the surface, perhaps more permanently. At home in Maastricht, Rieu is surrounded by comfort. He lives in a beautiful historic castle with his wife, Marjorie, and despite his public image as a constantly traveling showman, he finds peace in familiar routines. According to Pierre, when not on the road, André enjoys simple things. During the lockdown period a few years ago, he discovered a surprising new hobby: baking. He began watching baking tutorials on his phone, experimenting in the kitchen, and even shared some of his creations on social media. It was a creative outlet that brought joy during a time of stillness. He even made a guest appearance on the Dutch version of the Great British Bake Off, called Heel Holland Bakt, where his newfound passion for baking was met with enthusiasm from fans. Despite some speculation that he might consider it a retirement plan, Rieu was quick to dismiss the idea. Baking was fun, but it couldn't replace the stage. That balance, between passion and reality, between energy and rest, is something Rieu is now carefully managing. While future performances are still planned, including shows in places like Chile, Argentina, and Colombia, the planning process has changed. His team now thinks in smaller time frames. Instead of planning years in advance, they're taking things year by year, allowing more room for flexibility and health-focused decisions. Fans from distant countries might not see him tour as often, but those who can travel to Maastricht still have a unique opportunity. Rieu's summer concerts at Vrijthof Square have become legendary, known for their beautiful setting and special atmosphere. These performances, held in his hometown, offer a more controlled and comfortable environment, and may become the core of his future schedule. Despite everything, Rieu remains optimistic. He still has plans, ideas for new shows, and dreams he wants to pursue. In an interview, he once joked that he was only halfway through his life, aiming to live until the age of 140. That humor reflects the spirit that's kept him going for so long. Not just determination, but a lightness that keeps the pressure from becoming overwhelming. One of the more serious reflections to come out of this period is Rieu's awareness of the effects of stress on his body. He's spoken before about how one of his balance organs becomes sensitive when he's overworked. The symptoms include dizziness, disorientation, and physical instability, all of which make it impossible to perform. This condition, which he's quietly managed for over 20 years, doesn't go away. It just needs to be carefully monitored and managed, especially during busy periods. By cutting back on stress-heavy commitments, Rieu hopes to keep these symptoms in check. That means no unnecessary press tours, fewer speaking engagements, and greater emphasis on rest and recovery. It's not about doing less, but about doing what matters most, and doing it well. Through all of this, André Rieu's connection to his audience has remained unshaken. Fans continue to support him, understanding the challenges and rooting for his recovery. His honesty about aging, vulnerability, and needing to slow down has only deepened that bond. It makes him relatable, not just a virtuoso on stage, but a human being navigating life's changes with grace. His love for music hasn't changed, and neither has his desire to share it. The difference now is that he's more aware of how to do it in a way that's healthy, sustainable, and full of joy. André Rieu may be slowing the tempo, but the music is far from over.